It won't be our spouses.
You got that right.
That never happened.
Oh.
All right. There you go.
Okay, boys and girls. Well, I submitted this movie for you and was doing a little Wikipedia on it yesterday. It seems that this is a hagiography, which I know you guys all knew what it is. Not me.
No,
I don't.
no.
I don't.
So it's writings of saints or writings about saints. So that's the whole, you certainly get the gist of that. It's a hagiography of the life and of entertainer and activist, whatever his name is, Harry Belafonte. He was 50s and 60s star, a black entertainer. It chronicles his rise from Harlem and Jamaican upbringing from 1927 through the 2012 release date. A very, very moderate box office of $45,000.
Wow.
So there must have been like 3 family members and another guy that came in.
Yeah, yeah.
They're probably trying to figure out how it got a $4 bump from all of us. What happened?
What's going on? Belafonte, born Harold George Belafonte, Bellanfanti Jr. He popularized calypso music. He was an EGOT winner, although the Oscar was in a non-competitive category for Humanitarian Award in 2014. He's a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer in 2022 as an early influencer. As you saw in the movie, he was a Tonight Show host for a week. I thought interesting, it was February 5th through 9th, 1968, which was just about 6 weeks before Martin Luther King was killed. He, in fact, had MLK and Bobby Kennedy as guests on the show.
Wow.
Wow,
that's
Yeah.
pretty amazing time-wise.
He brought Barack Obama Sr. Through one of his foundations to this country to study at the University of Hawaii. I often felt like the archival pieces had a Forrest Gump feel. I was trying to figure out how a guy could be in the middle of so many things throughout his life, and I was impressed with it. I was specifically interested in the 1963 through 65 civil rights activity with John Lewis and others, especially helping MLK in the March to Selma, which I told you I got a chance to see, and see the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and it's just kind of takes your breath away when you see what went on. He also made an album in 1962. He made many, but one in 62 featured a young harmonica player named Bob Dylan. Anyway, I was really interested in seeing this for myself because of the civil rights impact that he had in this movie, with all the archival pieces brought that out, especially that period from 63 to 65, the summer voting drives and people who were killed in the cars in Mississippi. How he and Sidney Poitier gathered up money and flew down to him, or drove down to him. And he had the cachet or the pull to be able to call Bobby Kennedy and say, hey, watch our back while this was going down. So anyway, I enjoyed learning the first part. Everybody knows the Deo song, but the calypso music and other things that he was part of, I thought were relatively entertaining. I did not know that he then went on and did stuff, the We Are the World, Ethiopian humanitarian efforts, and then the stuff he's done with both gangs and others. He had that meeting of the elders, and then he had a meeting of the young people that it shows in the film. And I thought all that was really kind of interesting. And it's not a guy who comes to the top of your mind when you're thinking about civil rights, but he put a lot of the grease on the wheels that made things go.
When it was released in 2011, was it part of film festivals? I mean, to me, it's hard to believe that it only did 45,000 unless it had just an absolute zero release or zero marketing.
Yeah, I
produced
couldn't find
for
anything.
cable TV. How was it produced for theaters?
I think it was. I mean, she's done other stuff, but I think the Susan Rostock, I think it is. I would guess like you that it was mostly for cause related film tribute things.
Or fundraising
Yeah,
for
perhaps.
cause, yeah.
I mean,
Well,
Because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I don't ever remember hearing about it. And I do try to keep up with films, and I don't remember this at all. I don't remember hearing about it, nothing. So I think you're right. The marketing, there was none. You know, it was just throw it out there and
but
see
throw
what
it out.
sticks.
I wonder where they threw it out to.
Yeah,
Was it made for
exactly.
cable TV? Was it made for? You think it was made for theaters? I mean, it has some box office, or was that cable revenue? Do you have any idea where
Yeah,
the?
I have no clue.
You know, it could be, you know, how they have the in February, the Black Black History Month. Maybe that, you know, I don't know. But I thought it was really good. I did not know how, God, he did so much. You're so right, Mike. He did so much. And I didn't realize it. I mean, I knew that he was involved. I just didn't know how much. And it was really eye-opening.
You
Well,
know, it might have been a vanity project, given the
Yeah.
number of his kids that were involved in it.
Mm,
That could have
True.
been. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Well, the question I have for the group is not that it wasn't successful. Maybe it was highly successful in what it was intended to do, but would it have been more impactful if it had been narrated as opposed to the centerpiece? I mean, it's the essence of giving the microphone to the person you're reporting on. And Mahoney knows you never give the microphone to the person you're reporting on. You keep some sort of third party distance, and which gives credibility and perspective. But he narrated his own life story, which raises all sorts of suspicions for me that it was a gloss over, and maybe there's nothing wrong with that. I just think it would have been a lot more impactful as a documentary if it had had a third party narration, at least through part of it,
To legitimize it.
Constantly look at me, look at me, look at me.
Mm-hmm.
There was plenty of reasons to look at him, but if somebody else is tooting your horn, it has more, to me, it has more impact than when you toot your own. That's
Maybe Morgan Freeman was tied up.
James Earl Jones.
James Earl
Right.
Jones.
He was working on Star Wars, you know, and
One of the producers of it, I don't know if you noticed, was Jim Brown.
Oh, sure.
I did not notice that.
I didn't know that. Do you agree with that, Mike? What he was saying about the third party?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it would have given rise to a much greater, like more normal box office event, and than just this personal film involving the family and friends. And now he's got a ton of archival footage, which does set the tone for some of this stuff. But you're right. He narrates, I went here, I did this, I went. Mm-hmm.
He's
Yeah,
very
you're right.
eloquent. He's very eloquent.
Yeah,
And,
Yeah.
you know, and he backs up every move with, you know, a decent reason for why he did it and why he stepped in, you know, why he went to all those different places. But, you know, it's just it's a memoir as opposed to a
yeah,
traditional
Yeah,
documentary.
documentary. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right.
He, I can't remember if it was in the film or if it's something I read in Wiki that he calls Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice the house niggers. Or
Really?
he said there was in the old days there was two kinds. There was a house one and then there was a field one. The house ones went along to get along.
So
And he felt
with some
Stop the
people.
recording, Bill. Stop the recording.
Yeah.
Maybe I should, you know. But did
And,
he have
and he sort of felt the same way about Jackie Robinson. He was mystified why Jackie Robinson supported Richard Nixon in 1960 against Jack Kennedy. He was also not a big fan of Kennedy's.
No.
Early on, he thought that Kennedy was sharp and intellectually pretty interesting, but was not engaged at all and not too aware of the civil rights movement of the 1950s.
Yeah, I think the only reason he ended up being there, and I think he said it, was that Nixon did nothing. Nixon didn't respond at all. So.
I thought it was interesting, though, that it's indicated in this film that Bobby Kennedy had an epiphany, though, and kind of changed his thinking and kind of saw Belafonte's point of view. I agree with what Donna said. I you know, without regard to who's narrating, if it's him talking about himself or somebody else, my colleagues here are a lot smarter than I am on this stuff, but I had no idea his level of involvement with all of his movement. He literally went from one movement to the next to the next. I mean, he made a comment about when he got up in the morning, you know, the day was wasted if he wasn't all about what am I going to do to make the world a better place, to end this injustice or whatever it was. I mean, the guy was prolific. I'm surprised that he had time to have a career, a singing career, with all the other things that he was involved in. And I personally don't find the fact that he narrated on himself to be a negative or a detriment. I mean, there's plenty of footage to back up what he was about for all of these years, and plus just the putting the things that he did to right the wrongs, just his career. I mean, his singing career. I mean, he was a wildly successful entertainer, and there's some interesting. I'm going to send you guys later tonight. My wife found something about the infamous television variety show where he touches Petula Clark's hand, which was a major thing back in the day. And she found an interesting article about that, which I'll email to you afterwards. But I was blown away by the man. I really was. I had no idea of this aspect of his life, and I appreciated the documentary. My wife and I both enjoyed it very much.
I mean, until I got to Selma, I thought he was a banana boat guy, and that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And interestingly, Belafonte's affiliation with the civil rights movement did not start with Martin Luther King. In fact, he came to King relatively late in terms of his activism. His one of his mentors, one of his mentors was actually the singer Paul Robeson, who had a real star-crossed career and was basically blacklisted for years and almost sort of died in obscurity. And it was Belafonte's admiration of Robeson and then W.E.B. Du Bois before that got him involved in the social movements you know, such as they were in the 1950s. And then in the 50s, when King started to get involved with some of the boycotts in Mississippi and Alabama, that's when they got together.
And King reached out to him, right? I mean, King, as we
Yeah,
are
we
to
need to
believe
talk.
what came out here, King reached out to me. He said, I want to chat with you for a couple of minutes. They wound up spending 4 hours together or whatever it was, but King needed him. Also, Robeson, I think, made there was something in there about Robeson giving him a piece of advice, which actually became the title of this documentary. If you want people to know you, they get them to sing your song or something like that. But that's where the title for this documentary came from, was something that Robeson had said to him. So
I'm always amazed that I learned again in Selma, but John Lewis, and you see those various scenes that he's
Yeah.
in. He's like 23 years old.
Yes, 23.
I enjoyed the documentary because after living in Mississippi and then in Atlanta, you know, there were some faces that brought back memories. You know,
Julian Bond. Mm.
Julian Bond.
Yeah.
The first cell phone I ever used was in the back seat of a limo with Julian Bond, that I was responsible for getting him to a television debate. And he,
Wow.
I mean, there's a whole backstory, but I got what was then the early adaptive or early, cell phone to stay in touch with, because there's like 5 minutes to airtime, 4 minutes to airtime, and he's in the back of a limo, like, we've got to go inside. But Julian Bond, he was around Atlanta. John Lewis was around Atlanta. And I think Sanders might have been there in Mississippi when Fannie Lou Hamer's funeral occurred, and I got to cover Fannie Lou Hamer and meet Stokely Carmichael. And I mean, there's lots of stuff that it brought back a lot of past faces and scenes that were part of the TV coverage. Here's a cynical point of view, and I throw it out there just to get reaction. Was the spotlight shining on certain things and he stepped into it, or did the spotlight follow him into certain dilemmas and issues? Was he taking advantage of the spotlight that was being shown, or did he bring the spotlight and help shine with his celebrity? And I think he brought the spotlight, but a cynical person could say, "Oh, he just took advantage of all, what was newsworthy, and he brought his singing career and my guess is his singing career may have suffered from the fact that he stepped into some of these things." But it's hard to separate the two. Your activism and your entertainment meet somewhere. Does one fuel the other, or does one harm the other? As I'm watching this thing, I'm trying to read between the lines of what's the takeaway.
I think it's the latter of the two, what you just stated. I think it's the latter, and I agree with you. Like I said, I couldn't believe he had time to have a career, an entertainment career with everything he was involved with, from civil rights or whatever. So I would vote for the latter of their two propositions there.
I think it's both. I think in some cases he stepped into the spotlight, certainly with the civil rights movement, with the anti-war movement, but in things like, I think he was an important influencer in probably putting the spotlight on the famine in Ethiopia. And I think at the tail end of that, when they talk about addressing the responsibility of young people to step up here because they're making poverty a crime, I think he also helped expose that.
I think I got the impression he and Quincy Jones kind of brought that whole "We Are the World" thing together.
Yeah. Well, it seems like, you almost have to be Well, it seems like you almost have to be an entertainer. If you're Black, you have to be an entertainer or something, an entertainer or an athlete to get any kind of recognition, at least at that time. And that's why it was so good. It's like he had the recognition as an entertainer, and he could take that and use that to his advantage to bring the people that liked him as an entertainer to like him as an activist, I guess. It's unfortunate, but it seems like the people that were the strongest to maybe to us, to white, were the people that were entertainers and we already knew them. You know, it's like it happens. It seems like it happens with any kind of, you've got, women, you've got the gay movement, people started liking gay people because they liked Ellen. People started liking, I know it just opened up people's worlds, I guess. I guess that's what it is.
Yeah, Jim Brown, one of the obituaries I saw this week. I guess he and Raquel Welch had an embrace or a thing. It was sort of like the Petula Clark touch from Harry Belafonte. There are all these different levels of,
yes,
they were on screen together. Oh, they touched together. Oh, they embraced together. Who knows where this is going to go?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's so many laws against it at that time too.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, in our lifetime, there's so many laws against, Black people, and being from Chicago, my gosh, we had, between the redlining and all this stuff that happened in Chicago, it was, it's amazing that we have come a long way, and we still have not come long enough. I'm in Florida, so he just signed a bill that said that any talk of race in elementary school is out. You cannot talk about race.
There's going to be some
Really?
dumb mothers come out of Florida in a few years.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's so unbelievable that it's crazy. And at the same time, this is what kills me. DeSantis got teachers a huge pay raise. Great. But then don't allow them to teach. It just makes no sense. But anyway.
The other thing I was really impressed about in this, number one, just sort of as an aside, the fact that Belafonte hosted a week of the Carson Show in 1968.
Yes.
But the other one was, what was the cosmetic company? Was it Revlon that said we're doing Harry Belafonte evening? You put it together, blah blah blah. And I mean, I don't ever remember seeing that, but it was just. It was great to watch. I could have watched another 10 minutes just of that.
Well, they did. I guess what they said, they did 5 more shows, but then the stations in the South said we're gonna shut it down.
Right.
All right. I have an interesting side note. The Banana Boat song,
Yes,
which is like a traditional song, but it was then brought to the U.S. and popularized first by a folk group, and then Harry Belafonte made it a hit. But the members of the folk group are listed as authors, co-authors of the song. And among the people listed as songwriters for the Banana Boat song is Alan Arkin.
Really?
really. Alan,
Wow.
Was he a folk singer?
Yeah.
he was. Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Oh,
That's pre-Yossarian days.
Google
Yeah.
it.
How does that song go, Gary?
Dale.
Everybody sing.
I don't know which part Alan Arkin wrote, but that's if you're ever in a trivia game, that might come up.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
I was surprised that they asked him about royalties on that. No royalties on that.
Alan Arkin gets royalties on it.
But not for all the sporting events, because they just do the one
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I
right.
thought you meant
yeah.
no royalties for Harry Belafonte.
Somebody's getting them.
Yeah.
He also was the first person to win a gold record. I thought that was amazing.
Wow.
Any
Oh,
person.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Was it
Oh,
that song?
that was pretty impressive with Steve Allen kept handing him all the,
Here's one.
yeah.
Here's
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was.
Hey, Jeff Arthur, what do you think of this whole thing?
I don't have anything that anyone else hasn't already said. I mean, I enjoyed it a lot. You know, I was pretty young when all this was happening, so I had no knowledge of it at the time.
Show off.
Yeah, yeah.
How old are you,
How
Jeff?
old were you when King was assassinated?
I was born in '63, so I was what,
Oh,
5.
geez.
5. Yeah.
You were
We're
6.
born in '63. Whoo.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were almost
So this is
graduated high school.
We
Yeah.
actually
yeah.
lived in Germany for a couple of years when I was, well, maybe a year when I was about 2. So that would have been around 65. So I wasn't even in the country when some of this was going on. But
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, you're a suspect then.
Did you know James O. Ray?
Where were you on the night of?
Yeah.
It was pretty scary to be a little kid in those times. So me and Mike Matson, we were in the same classroom when the teacher told us about JFK being killed. It was like
Yeah.
you're 11 years old and
Yeah.
teacher comes in and tells you the president's been killed. You know, it's like, wow, what's
So
going
you each
on?
have an alibi.
Yeah, I was
yeah,
with
a lot of crazy
Keep,
stuff
keep
going on.
covering for me. Yeah.
But you know, you guys, you're just older enough than I am that you had to worry about. You know, Mike and I talked about this, about the Vietnam War and stuff, and
Yeah.
you know, I was too young for that to be even something I thought about. But you guys would have been right in it.
Well, we were at
Oh, yeah.
most of the guys on the screen were at the tail end of the draft. In fact, the lottery kind of ended when we became of age. So
When we were freshmen.
we barely ducked it. But I can tell you in high school, it was very much on our minds of, you know, do you enlist in case you get a draft notice? Do you know, what do you do? It was very
Right.
much on our minds. Yeah.
Well,
Wasn't that much. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was gonna say, it wasn't that much earlier that we were also worrying about the Russian missile crisis and the Bay of Pigs and all that other stuff, and you know, hiding under the desk in the case of nuclear war and all of
Mm-hmm.
the bomb shelters and everything else that people were building.
Yeah.
I agree with Bill that there was a lot of opportunity for terror as a young kid.
Yeah.
We didn't have to worry about the Russian missile. We had nuns to guard the front door.
That's right. And nobody
They're
get
rulers.
past them. Yeah. Brutal.
My
Brutal.
mom and dad set my sisters and me down during the Cuban Missile Crisis and said, if there's a nuclear holocaust, don't get on the bus. We'll pick you up at school.
Sounds good.
And we were like, okay, whatever
Well,
you say.
now you felt safe. Yeah.
Well, not that you have to go to Hiroshima, but if you do,
Mm,
you
I
will
know.
know that hiding under a desk is folly.
yes. Yes. That's not going to work. No.
well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we were in the hallways, right? They marched us out into the hallways and told you how to bend down. Kiss your ass goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Well, I think that was more a fire drill, but I think for the nuclear ones, it was under your desk.
Under your desk.
Kind of
Right.
what I'm remembering.
When
But
you think about it. Oh.
Well,
So when did Belafonte die?
less than a month ago,
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say just a few
Very
weeks ago.
recently.
April.
It was
Belafonte?
90.
April.
Yeah.
25th.
yeah, he just
That's
did.
been recent.
Yeah.
Like
that
him,
within a month.
him
Within
and
a
then
month.
Jim Brown.
Is that what led you to watch this? Because he was in the news, or what? How did you discover this?
The involvement I'd seen in Selma at the National Park Service deal there, and I
Okay.
wasn't aware of it the picture that's behind Pete and things like that were around. And, you know, the videos of Joan Baez and Peter, Paul and Mary. And I thought, well, this sounds cool and something to dig into. And I didn't know he'd hired Dylan in 62.
Did you go to Selma on the way to somewhere, or did you go to Selma as an end point? Were you
No,
going?
it was
about
part of
Selma?
our whole trip through Georgia. We went to, like I said, we went to the King Center, the picture in this movie of Ebenezer Baptist Church, the old one, and went through all that. And then we went to.
And Mike, where were you? Where were you? Where were you living then?
Right here.
You just did this recently.
Right here.
Oh, recently. Okay, I see.
It's a
I
vacation.
Yeah, it
see.
was just we go to national parks as part of our tour thing, and so we had a bunch in Georgia and Alabama to see, and I didn't expect much to come from it, frankly, but it was pretty powerful. I mean, we went down to Plains and saw Jimmy Carter's deal and all that, and for a lesson in humbleness, that's a pretty good place to go.
And is it a national park?
Huh?
Is it a national park?
It's a national park visitor center. It's his old high school in Rosalind's, and 50 odd kids in their 3 classes. But they've turned the old high school into this visitor center that's all about Jimmy and Plains and Billy and stuff like that. Then we went on to Alabama and went to Selma and went to Montgomery, and then we enjoyed some other more scenic stuff, the Little River National Preserve and stuff that was a little more hiking and fun oriented. But that was a thing just to do, and it's where I first. Well, everybody knows Harry Belafonte, and then all of a sudden he's in all these pictures, and holy crap! What? I had no idea.
Hmm.
And maybe you guys did. I just didn't know that.
I didn't. I had no
Yeah.
idea.
And I
Such
think
Yeah, no, I knew that he was really active in it, and
Active, yeah.
that he raised substantial amounts of money and then donated substantial amounts of his own money to Bail King and other civil rights leaders and civil rights folks that got jailed in the South out. He was a big important source of money to keep the movement going, sometimes on a daily basis.
He said King was at his house 48 hours before he was in Memphis at the garbage strike. And he was supposed to fly back to Belafonte's house when he got done with that. And then, of course, the Lorraine Hotel happened and he never made it. But
well,
anyway.
I just looked it up and he died on April 25th of this year.
if
Wow.
you have get the chance to go to the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, if the visit to Selma and Atlanta moved you, Mike, you should go to the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, because you don't realize it when you go into the museum. At least I didn't. I mean, there's rooms and narration that goes back to the captures of slaves in Africa, and then how they were part of the slave economy, and then up to the present day. But the tour ends in Martin Luther King Jr.'s motel room. The back of the museum is the Lorraine Motel.
Wow.
I
And
have been there, been to the Lorraine, and
so it's
Wow.
it's very powerful. And
Very powerful.
me, it was like I had no idea. Maybe I was just naive, but everybody else knew the relationship to the museum, to the motel. But the motel, the tour ends at the Lorraine Motel.
Yeah.
You've been
Hanson,
I've
did you
been
go
there.
to the National Lynching Memorial that was in Montgomery?
No.
Have you ever seen? I've never been there, but I've
I've
just seen
seen,
stories about
I've
it.
seen
I've heard
pictures.
about it. Yeah.
I don't know about that one. I mean, we went to Tuskegee Institute and Tuskegee Airmen's Monton Field and stuff like that. But and it was really interesting too, just making the drive from Selma to Montgomery. It's only like 40 miles. maybe 30. And even back then, you see some of the pictures, you see the people walking in clusters on that highway. And it took them 4 days to get there. And there's signs on the side of the road that says campsite number 1 and campsite number 2. And people would put them up. And then the night before was when all those entertainers showed up, Sammy Davis and Tony Bennett and all those folks. And they were basically in Montgomery then, and were just going to hopefully see the governor the next day. And it's not an unattractive Capitol building, but it's certainly got a lot of history between back then and good old what's his face in '68.
Wallace.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah,
think Montgomery is where Jefferson Davis was sworn in as the president of the Confederacy too.
I think that's right.
wow.
So if we didn't know that he was involved in all this stuff, well, it sounds like Mahoney was more aware of it than most of us. Did he make a difference?
Good question.
I think
I
he,
have to say
I
so.
think he did, when you think about back then, even just holding Petula Clark's hand, as controversial as it was, it makes a difference. It just does when people.
plus if he made some of these things happen and he didn't get credit for it, he still made them happen. I mean, the way I heard We Are the World, he was a big part of that. I didn't know that he was a big part of that, but I think you got to give him credit for that regardless of what.
He's got a writing credit, right? On the song?
I don't know.
I don't know.
We should look up Alan Arkin, see if he got credit.
See if he got it.
I think
Well,
it was
then
Michael
Belafonte-
Jackson and what's the other guy? Michael Jackson was one of the writers, and
Yeah,
Quincy Jones.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Wasn't he somewhat instrumental in raising Robert Kennedy's awareness of racial issues? It seemed
Yeah,
like
when
he
he
took
brought
him
him to
out.
Mississippi. Yeah. And he met they weren't constituents because they couldn't vote, but
Yeah, people who were
people.
suffering from that whole problem.
Right.
Yeah,
So I think he influenced some decision makers and policy makers and so forth, and brought money to people who were trying to be active too, and raised everybody's awareness. I think he did make a difference.
well, I think he did, because I was just thinking about this, but I mean, there's people like Jesse Jackson and Julian Bond and even Dr. King and John Lewis. They didn't have the wherewithal. I mean, he took them, where'd they go? To Africa to learn about what was going on and to have some rest. I mean, he paid for that just to get the SNCC people a little break. I mean, they've been sitting at lunch counters getting dragged and beat.
right.
And that's the big thing that this didn't emphasize as much, but the whole nonviolent way they were doing things at the lunch counters when that was going on. They weren't to resist at all.
No
But
matter what.
he's a guy who could grease the skids and bring money from Portier and whatever Robeson had himself, and probably a lot of people in the North, black and white.
Was he on board with an Obama presidency?
Yeah.
I'm sure he
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
Did they touch on that in the documentary? Of course, the documentary was made in 2011. It wasn't a thing, right? But did we?
What's the deal with Obama's father?
They had a foundation in whatever whatever
Kenya.
country it was in.
Kenya.
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 Yeah. And they brought over 20 or 30 people just to have them be able to go to school somewhere.
Yeah, and one of them was Obama's father, right?
Yeah.
And Obama was in office at that time.
The movie.
Yeah.
Or the movie, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you got to give him credit for those ratings for the Smothers Brothers. They
Oh, that was interesting, wasn't
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Tom, I'm Dick, and I'm Harry.
it?
That was pretty good.
Yeah, that
You've
was
heard of
cute.
us before. Here
Yeah.
we are.
What'd you think, Sanders? You haven't said much.
Oh, I thought it was excellent. I knew a little bit about it, mostly because when Sidney Poitier died, there was Harry was in a lot of that.
Yeah.
We were talking about it, but that whole era is just, I don't know. Jeff Arthur, I often think of my generation, the boomers, as being the assassination generation. And
Mhm.
it just brings all of that up to me. Vietnam, King, Bobby getting assassinated. That's the way, and both of the Kennedys getting assassinated. We were just young enough to be impressionable of all of that.
And I'm so glad that gun violence is no longer part of our national conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so glad. You know, that's kind of how I felt when Kennedy died. I kind of felt like it was if you took your life or the life of the country, that was a time when we just, at least it just changed. It was a whole different feel about the whole country when Camelot died, and I kind of felt that was like it was like the whole country, that's where their puberty started, you know, is when Kennedy died, and then we just had to deal with all these changes that were coming up. And yeah, I thought it was really, you know, again, like everyone, I thought it was really good. I realized I didn't know, you know, I should have known a lot more and didn't. You know, with the Vietnam War, I was engaged to a boy, you know, and who died in Vietnam. And you know, and of course I was involved with in 68 with the convention and all that. But yeah, it really, you know, I think when Kennedy died, everything just changed for everybody. We just had different outlooks on so many things. So you know, but I'm sorry I didn't know more about Harry Belafonte. I'm really glad I know now, but I didn't at the time. I didn't.
I think a lot of people of our generation will take a look at November 22nd, 1963, and draw that as a line of demarcation as well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, just personally, King and Bobby Kennedy's murders probably affected me deeper simply because I was a little bit more aware. And I was
Yeah.
15, 16 years old.
Yeah.
At that.
Right.
But at
Yeah,
10,
we were still living in the afterglow of the success of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Kennedy assassination occurred and the honeymoon was over.
Right. Right.
And Medgar Evers was killed earlier that year as well.
Yes. Yes.
He was killed in June of 63.
and the ones in Mississippi.
Yeah, Malcolm X was killed the next year,
Mhm.
64.
Yeah.
So, Sanders, your point is excellent. We really did see assassination upon assassination.
You know, I worked in Mississippi, and there was a lady in my newsroom who lived down the street from Medgar Evers and saw him get killed. He came home from church,
Oh
and he
my
was gunned
God.
down in his driveway. And she and her family were getting out of their car and saw it.
You can drive to Medgar Evers' driveway tonight. It's still a home preserved in a middle-class neighborhood in Jackson.
Yeah.
It's not cordoned off, or, you know, maybe sadly it's not been more, you know, preserved, but I mean, it's still there, but you can just drive right up to it.
When you guys were down there, was it was it somebody's residence, or was it memorialized in any way?
No, it was a residence and up until just a few years ago. Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, but nobody lives there now. And it's not it was a middle-class neighborhood, and now it's a lower middle-class neighborhood that nobody's protecting. And when you're a car full of white people driving through the neighborhood, nobody's home, You know, you're
Yeah.
aware that you're out of place.
Mhm.
That's one thing that's different about King's boyhood home. Of course, his dad was the preacher at Ebenezer. And
Ebenezer.
it's just a block from his boyhood home. So, and it's preserved, and they do tours and stuff like that in that.
Yeah.
Well, and Atlanta's a very different,
Oh yeah.
very different kind of place than small town Mississippi.
Yeah, oh yeah. Even big town Mississippi.
Yeah.
I don't
Jackson-
think there, I don't think
Jackson's
there's
as big as it
one
gets.
time in the show that they said anything about Malcolm X.
No.
No.
His allegiance, I mean, that had to be intentional because they were, you know, along the same timeline. His allegiance must have been so much stronger to Martin Luther King, and he must not have agreed with Malcolm X for that to have come out that way.
Well, I think there was a division in the Black community. Of course, you know, from a white woman saying this, but I think there was a division in the Black community between nonviolence and violence. You know, Malcolm X was not that he was for violence, but he was for arming yourselves and defending, you know, yourself, whatever that meant. Where, you know, King was more for the nonviolent and you know, take it with good reason. He said, you know, who's going to win? You know, if we fight back, who's going to win? They are. So just the nonviolent. But I think there was a real difference in the Black community. Either you were you wanted to be with the Malcolm X saying, you know, we're going to fight back and we're not going to take it and and with the nonviolent Martin Luther side. But
Yeah. Well, the Nation of Islam was a well-established group and much more strident about Black power. Even in the early '60s, and I mean, I think it's Malcolm X. You know, by any means necessary. So, there were, and Malcolm X gets killed because of a schism inside of the Nation of
Islam, right? Yeah.
Maybe it was.
Where were you in Barnhart?
What?
We were in 6th grade that year. No.
Okay.
Mahoney, I was going to ask you what you knew, if any, about this. Was it Edwards guy, the guy with the psychoanalyst wife, and who was apparently CIA people trying to get people into McCarthy's.
I want to see a documentary on that guy.
Yeah.
What was his name?
I'm trying to remember.
Was it?
Are you muted, Honus?
Yeah, now I'm out.
Okay.
Well, you know, the FBI was all over
Martin Luther
King from about 1965 forward. I mean, they were bugging his phones, they were bugging his hotel rooms. They had tape recordings that they sent to his family of him having sex with other women. They were constantly trying to tie him together with, if not outright communist, certainly leftist causes throughout the whole thing. So this guy, J. Richard Kennedy, you know, it was a pseudonym, and he was part of the character assassination effort on King, and he wasn't the only one.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Mike, that reminds me, is because I just watched Martha Mitchell. I think it's called the Martha Mitchell. It's on Netflix.
I watched that.
It's a recommendation.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I mean, the same thing, you know, character assassination, because she was telling the truth. And they were doing everything to make her sound like she was wacko and crazy. And at that time, you know, you could put your wife in a sane asylum and all that. And so it's you know,
Wait a minute.
it was
Well,
still going on.
Way.
There's an idea.
Yeah.
Where's
You're
Joan?
kidding, Cecilia.
Here.
Yeah, where's
Where's
Joan, by the way?
Yeah, where's Joan?
Joan is in
My
Not
London.
in the apartment.
My first wife.
obviously.
Okay.
Joan is in London. Joan's in London.
Oh, is there
Are
an
you gonna meet
asylum in
her?
London?
And she's at the Chelsea Flower Show.
Oh,
Wow.
It's a thing that she didn't think I was be interested in, and she was 100% correct.
Well,
So I'm,
we'll
What'd
be
you
watching
think?
this tomorrow.
I'm doing guy things. I drove up and met Britt in Edwardsville. We went to a concert at a theater with a Steely Dan tribute band that I promise you is better than Steely Dan ever was live. But Steely
Wow.
Dan said they did what they did in the studio, and they weren't very good as live performers. These kids had it. And then we went to a Cardinal game yesterday, and then tomorrow Mahoney and Barnhart and I Wednesday we're going to a Royals game. Then Thursday there's golf, and Thursday night there's Knuckleheads and the Mavericks. I'm just doing all the guy stuff that I don't have to. I don't have to tell Joan, hey, I'm going to a ball game. Sorry.
Jeff
You never
Copeland,
have
what'd
to
you
do that
think?
again.
what?
It brought me up to speed on everything that he did. And I really didn't, I was pretty unaware of all of it. I remember his music fondly from childhood. My parents had his Harry Belafonte at Carnegie Hall album,
Oh, wow.
which had all of that big stuff on. I think I still have that album. But the comment about him waking up every morning and looking for the next big thing to do was, I think, encapsulated his modus operandi. I think that was the way he lived, and that was pretty inspiring.
Yeah.
I thought it was good.
Well, we're coming up on 5 minutes.
Okay.
Wow.
Brenda
Recommendation.
doesn't have to leave because Joan's not fixing dinner.
That's right.
Matson, it was a very good choice.
Yeah,
Very good.
Yeah,
choice.
appreciate it.
Yeah, very
Appreciate it.
good.
Peter, you're next.
I'm going to, I've given this a lot of thought, and this movie's been on my list for at least a year. I'm going to ratchet down the intensity. I don't want to do time travel. I don't want to be bummed out. Okay. I'm picking a comedy, and we could only talk about it for 5 minutes next week for all I care. And then we could talk about how shitty the Royals are for the rest of the 55.
No.
Does everybody have Amazon Prime? Because it's the only streaming service. Has everybody got
Yes.
Prime? Okay. I am picking a comedy by one of my favorite comedic actors, Albert Brooks, called Lost in America with Julie Haggerty. It's hilarious. There are some
Yes.
very funny scenes, great dialogue. You will not be disappointed. And I just want to take a week off and just chill and laugh. So that's my movie for next week, Lost in America.
Very good. Very good, Pete. That's a
Do
good
you know
one.
about the book that Albert Brooks wrote called 2030?
No.
It's
No.
the principle of the book is that they've cured Alzheimer's disease and cancer, and there are all these old people populating the country, and it's driving everybody nuts.
There you go, Jeff. That's what, Jeff Arthur. That's what you have to look forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are quotations in this movie that my wife and I say to each other, like if a certain scenario comes up, we'll quote that movie. And it's
All right.
I don't see it on TV a lot either. So I'm going to watch it again just for the enjoyment. But there are some literally some very I think you'll laugh out loud at some stuff in this movie.
I thought you were
Brooks is
throwing
great.
out. I thought you were throwing out Animal House.
No.
Albert Brooks is really good.
And-
Everything he does is really good. So,
Julie
yeah, that's a
Haggerty
good
is
one.
hilarious. Gary Marshall plays a casino manager. There's a scene in with him that's a riot, but it just
Very good.
it's pretty effing funny, and I think you'll enjoy it. And like
Yeah.
I say, not a lot of cerebral energy will be expended, but let's just laugh for a week, okay?
I think like in an RV going, if I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
When
Sanders,
Albert Brooks gets the sweats when he's anchoring the network newscast in broadcast news, I think that's one of the funniest bits in that whole movie.
Right, right. That's a good one.
Sanders, did
I
you get the river, down by the river one?
I did, and thanks for straightening me out. I didn't realize there was a 2022, New Orleans version of it. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend that you take up Manson's recommendation and invest $3.99 on that. It was, I watched it on YouTube and thought it was fantastic. Watched it today, as a matter of fact.
And Mike Sanders, I apologize for correcting you on something that needed no correction. I was correcting you on the wrong movie, though.
I'm
just trying to do,
And then
trying to help
I
out.
wore my Take Me to the River t-shirt, which is from 2019, where I got to see Walter Wolfman Washington. That's was the main reason I wanted to go in Tacoma. And it was after my transplant, Jeff Arthur, I had gone to a Black Keys concert, and then I went crazy and I went to see this thing. I just thought, well, I can do anything now.
You realize that since we all downloaded Sing Your Song, the FBI is now
Is now tapping our phones and stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we have 2 weeks to watch Pete's movie because
Oh, that's
yeah.
right, because next week
Memorial
we
Day
have
Holiday?
Memorial Day holiday, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And that
then-
means Manson has 2 weeks to write a 15-minute story on Harry Belafonte.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Who picks after Pete? Does it? I guess
Me.
Jerry.
It's
Oh, you
usually
just-
me, but if you want a shot, Whitaker, go ahead.
No, well, we'll stay in order. I've
Because you
got
might take off again. I don't know.
I've got a movie. I'm not going anywhere.
He's
Okay.
planning his vacations around it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have the pick next? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gone for 6 weeks.
I've got one, and I'll wait. My
Good.
Okay, June the 5th.
I guess.
By the way, Donna, last Thursday, Lucy sang a song from, what the hell was it? It was a hard song, and she sang at a recital and was excellent. It was really good.
Oh, I
The
cry
problem
when
was the same night Dutch was emceeing a 5th grade talent show in Kansas City. So I've only seen video, but he apparently he did a great job. And then he sang as part of a Backstreet Boys band in the talent show. So I had grandkids performing everywhere.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's
Sorry,
wonderful.
Donna and I share grandchildren, so you have to listen.
Grandchildren, yes. Yes.
Maybe
Gary?
post it at the league site on YouTube.
What'd you say?
You can post
Gary,
it
remind
on
me.
the league site.
Oh.
On the YouTube site, the videos of your grandchildren.
Oh. Well, a couple of them, some of the places they prohibit you from
Yeah.
taping them for licensing reasons or whatever. So I don't.
Oh wow.
For child security.
5th grade talent shows are up for grabs, though.
Gary, remind me about the Bromberg movie, the David Bromberg thing you mentioned a while back.
The name of it?
Yeah.
Right.
Or where you saw it. Is that a YouTube thing? Or
Yeah, I don't. Wherever I saw it, it was free.
okay.
Maybe it's on Netflix or maybe it's on Prime, and if you have a Prime membership, it was free to me. But
Okay.
I don't remember the name of it, but it was.
I watched it, but I can't remember either. But it was worth it, Jeff. Find it.
It's only about like
Yeah,
an
I'll find
hour
it.
and 10 minutes long. I mean, it's an easy, quick diversion. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Right.
Well, I'll see you Thursday.
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Oh yeah, ball game Wednesday. And I'll
Yeah.
see you again on Thursday.
Right.
Okay.
All right, folks.
All right.
Everybody have a
See
great.
you.
Care. Good
Thanks.
Enjoy the
memorial.
holiday.
Yeah. Happy
Yeah.
holidays.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.